what I can tell you. We did bet 2 props. One in the New Orleans-Dallas game where we went with P.J. Washington Jr. over 2.5 assists, up to minus 115, 120. It'll take them up to 120, over 2.5 assists, P.J. Washington Jr. And then here goes another assist, Memphis-Orlando. Desmond Bane under 4.5 at plus money. 4.5 assists. If you could get plus money, that's what they wanted to take. And it's Desmond Bane under 4.5 assists, and then PJ Washington Jr. over 2.5 assists. So those are 2 props in the NBA. What I am seeing in the back end, one-sided action, one-sided recreational better action on the Pistons, all over the Pistons. They're betting the Pistons blindly. They're betting the Rockets blindly. And I'm seeing some money coming in on the T-Wolves for sure, because that line's dropped. And finally, the last game on the board, which obviously it shows because the line reflects it, the Warriors. So those are one-sided games. Pistons, Rockets, and Warriors. The books will be hoping all 3 of those don't come in, because they're being parlayed together. They're being money line parlayed together, and they're being bet straight. Yeah, I do have college basketball. Green Bay plus 15. That's 877. Green Bay plus the 15. 885. Michigan on the money line, up to minus 110. And then 2 totals for you. The earliest game, 851, under 158. Bowling Green, Toledo. And then 883, over 143.5, Sacred Heart and Merrimack. I do expect, it's early. Again, I expect a lot more college basketball to come in, because yesterday I had so much volume. So they're hitting size, they're hitting totals. But so far this early limited board, that's what I got. And of course, the Saturday stuff will start coming in this evening, because they do bet a lot of overnights as well.
Minus 2.5 for the one Michigan team. The total 150, 50.5. Marco D'Angelo. The Michigan that doesn't have state at the end of it is on a freaking roll right now. They've won 6 in a row. This is a short number. Are we going with the favorite?
Well, we've seen the money come in early, Prez, to the dog here, Michigan State. This thing, the overnight line, first line out on the board last night was Michigan 3.5. And we've seen that number come down steadily. Even though Michigan is 12-0 straight up at home this year. But if you look, they've been running off wins, but they've all been close wins. They're not running away from the opposition. Michigan State is the better defensive team. They've held 10 of their last 17 opponents to 39% shooting or less from the field. And you've heard me say it on shows 100 times. Give me the better defensive team getting points, and I am usually going to line up there. And if you put the gun to my head in this game, I probably would lean to Michigan State. But I feel the better play in this game is a little angle I found with these 2 teams. Michigan State, since 2023, when they are a road underdog, first half, if you just bet them over the total first half, they're 10-3 since 2023. Okay, not bad, not a real big sample size, but 10-3 to the over. How about this for Michigan? The same sample size since 2023. If you bet Michigan first half to go over at home, or all games, home or away, they're 32-12. But if you bet them, if they're coming off a first half at home and are coming off a win, that number's 18-2, Prez, to the over. I'm going to take this game tonight. Michigan, if they want to beat Michigan State, want to go up tempo. They don't want to play a half-court game with Michigan State in the way they play defense. They want to try to get them out of their comfort zone. And the home team generally is the team that can dictate the tempo, and that also plays towards the over in this game. So that's where I'm going to go. We're looking at an over-under of 71 in the first half. So let's go ahead and take Michigan State first half over 71.
Well, Wemby's out, and that's reflected in the line. Detroit minus 3.5, a total of 235.5. And well, kudos to this Detroit Pistons team. Definitely a better season than expected. And San Antonio, they've got to be a fade team moving forward. How are you betting this game?
Well, Prez, that line was 3.5. We're looking at 4.5 now on this game, and that's how I'm gonna analyze this game. Obviously, as you said, Wemby's out for the season. That was announced yesterday. What did San Antonio do? First game off an injury. How many times we talk about it? The old injured player theory. They go out and win last night without him. And, I talk about the injured player theory so often. It's an angle I use a lot, and there's a second part of that angle. And normally when they win the first game, you go against them in the second game because they don't have that same intensity from the first game. But I'm going to put an asterisk up tonight, and this is the reason why. This is a unique situation that we have tonight with the Spurs. Because they played last night and coming right back and playing again tonight, and everybody figuring, this team, they're going to be a play against because Detroit's rested. They didn't play last night. The Spurs did. They're without star player. We expect them to regress now. And the market has over-adjusted. It's 4.5. Tell me in what planet the Pistons deserve to be a 4.5-point favorite on the road. Here's the situation. The fact that they played last night and play tonight, I think, is an advantage because they didn't travel. They played at home, so they're back-to-back. Fatigue should not be a factor playing back-to-back nights when you're just coming off the All-Star break. You've had several days off prior up to this, so you're not fatigued for traveling. And then for the flip side, the Pistons, this is their first game. They don't have a game under their belt. They haven't played in a week. And yes, they've got a 4-game winning streak. Did you look at that 4-game winning streak? They beat, before the All-Star break, Philadelphia, Charlotte, and Chicago twice. Those are 3 of the worst teams in the NBA that have a combined record, Prez, of 56-109. No, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to buy into the Pistons. In the Spurs, last 13 games, they're 5-8 straight up. Nothing to write home about. But when you think about 9 of those games were on the road, including 2 of them in Paris. Remember, they played 2 games with Indiana before the All-Star break, about a week before the All-Star break. And then they played 6 games in 10 days, all on the road, because it was the annual rodeo road trip. Remember, every year the rodeo comes in to San Antonio for like a 10, 11-day period, and they don't have access to their building. They got to play all those road games in a row. So the Spurs really at 5-8, better than their record indicates. I know they're without their star, but I like them in tonight's spot. Give me San Antonio plus the points. Make it 2 in a row. I wouldn't even mind a little sprinkle on it.
We're going to go fade the baby theory. We're going to UFC. We're going to take Anthony Fluffy Hernandez over Brendan Allen. However, it's like minus 300. So we're going to take Hernandez by decision, and we're going to fade the baby here. So here's the deal. Brendan Allen just had a baby in late December. So we're within 2 months here. It's not a super strong fade the baby because he and his wife have had a couple babies before. It's not like his first baby, but it's still a baby. He also dyed his hair blonde. There's a fade the haircut theory. So we got red flags all over the place. Listen, Hernandez has just relentless pressure and cardio. Like he's like Marab, who has just weaponized cardio. He has an incredible ground game. Brendan Allen struggles with cardio. So that is a nightmare for Brendan Allen. We saw him get tired in his last fight against Imavov, and he started to get tired in the second round. Now Hernandez can get hurt early in the fights. He gets hit, and it just seems to wake him up. Brendan Allen is not this dynamic striker that can knock out Hernandez. So Hernandez gets woken up with some of these shots, and then he just has been steamrolling these guys. Here's the other thing, Prez, why I like this by decision. These guys are they're friends. And when we see this in UFC, these guys that are friends and training partners and they're rooting for each other, they don't want to finish each other. They don't want to blast the other guy's face wide open and they don't want to choke the guy out. I've seen tons of these fights where you have these training partners and the fight just goes to decision. You're getting plus money on this. You get a fade the baby theory. You get 2 guys that are friends. You get a guy who's got relentless cardio and a guy that struggles with cardio. To me, plus money on Hernandez by decision is a fantastic play. Before the All-Star break, he went over 8 games in a row. He was attempting 16 field goal attempts. He's making over 8 shots a game, add in a couple free throws. He had 21 points last game against Toronto, and Toronto's down to skeleton crew on the front court. They got Bogbo and Barnes as their front court. Not great defenders. So I like Bam Adebayo to go over 17.5 points. However, I will say this. If this play is off, then that means my reads coming out of the All-Star break are off, and I am going to take a few days off to try and kind of reset and get these trends. It's okay to take some of these days off if you're on a hot streak, something disrupts the hot streak. So I will be monitoring NBA. What's been good is golf. We gave out a nice golf winner yesterday, and we're going to go back to golf. We're going to go Harry Hall under 68.5 round 2 score. That starts here in about an hour and 20 minutes. He shot 64 yesterday. And here's the thing, Press. I didn't even think he played that great. He was 70th in the field in putting, and he was tied for the lead. He hit 10 out of 13 fairways, 13 out of 18 greens in regulation. No bogeys, though. His bogey avoidance was great. The wind is not going to get more than 15 miles an hour. I think he has another good day. We only need him to get 3 under. So I'll take Harry Hall under 68.5 on his round 2 score.
The New York Knickerbockers plus money against Cleveland. Big total, 241.5, give or take. And rightfully so. I mean, the New York Knicks, 32-23 to the over. Cleveland, one of the best over teams in the league this year, 36-19. Strangely, 36-19 ATS as well. Ronald, how do we bet this basketball game?
Yeah, both teams here on the second leg of back-to-back games. New York coming off that OT win over the Bulls as double-digit favorites, and then now you see them as heavy dogs on the road here. Cavs coming off an easy win over the Nets yesterday. I think from a roster perspective, you look at the Knicks. OG and Hart missed yesterday's game. I'm assuming they play this one out, or that's how I handicap this one. But these are two of the most efficient offenses in the league right now on the season. The Cavs are number 1 in offensive rating. The Knicks number 2. As far as pace goes, the Cavs 6th in pace. So it's easy to see why the total is as high as it is right now. But the gap to me is on the defensive side of the ball. The Cavs are playing much better defense than the Knicks this season. If you look at the Knicks, they're really struggling against the 3-ball. That's specifically what the Cavs really thrive in. And the Cavs also very efficient in the paint. And that's another spot that the Knicks really struggle to defend, especially without, Mitchell Robinson there. With that said, the Cavs have been one of the best ATS teams in the season, in the NBA this season. You called out those numbers. And if you look at the Knicks side, on the second leg of back-to-back games, 1-6-1 ATS, and a league-wide trend that also points to the Cavs side since 2018. Teams coming off an OT win and are on the second leg of back-to-back games, they tend to struggle ATS, 59, 82, and 5 ATS, 41.8%. So it's a fade spot of the Knicks, looking towards the Cavs, and also look towards the Cavs team total over as well. They've been a strong team total over team in the NBA.
Houston playing Minnesota tonight. What a surprise season by Houston, that's for sure. Minnesota right where they're supposed to be. This game has got a low total, 218.5. Houston is favored. How are we betting this?
Yeah, this is actually the first game of for both teams after the All-Star break. Gobert, Edwards, Conley, they're all questionable, I believe. Already Randall and DiVincenzo out for Minnesota. To me, I mean, the total, I think, moving up and going towards Minnesota is telling me that someone is probably going to play out of those 3 or a combination of those guys. And if you look at the Rockets side, they will be without Van Vliet, but Jabari Smith will be back, I believe. It'll be his first game back since January 1st. If you look at the Wolves, they're not really a great ATS team this season. The Rockets on the first leg of back-to-back games, they're actually really solid, 10-2 straight up, 8-4 ATS. One of the biggest things I noticed with the Wolves team is that their defense continues to be overrated. On the season, opponents are actually 33-21-1 to their team total over when facing the Timberwolves. On the Rockets side, as home favorites against conference opponents, they take those games pretty seriously. They're actually 11-3 to their team total over, averaging 116.4 points per game. And then their average full game margin in those 14 games, plus 9.8. Rockets, to me, I think they've actually gone over their team total in 4 straight games as well against the Timberwolves in the last 4 matchups between the two teams. So one way that I was looking at this was the Rockets team total over 110.5. For these two teams, this is also their first game back off the break. To me, I don't really trust either defense. In the last 10 games prior to the break, the Kings they were really struggling defensively. They had the 25th defensive rating, giving up 120.9 points per game. If you look at the Warriors side, they were giving up 114.3 in the last 10 games. And that was against some struggling offenses, too. If you look at the teams that they were facing, majority of them were bottom half of the league in offensive rating during that period. To me, this looks like an over type game, and Washington, the Warriors seem like they aren't putting up great offensive numbers, but they were playing against some really slow-paced teams prior to the break, and also some teams that are pretty solid defensively. So the Kings, on the other hand, they've gotten some time to figure out the offense and their new rotation. I think their offense is going to start to flow in the second half of the season, but that doesn't necessarily mean their defense is going to get any better. If you look at the last 17 games for the Kings, opponents are 13-4 to their team total over. I know the Warriors, they're not shooting lights out from three right now. They're not that efficient, but the Kings are one of the worst 3-point defenses in the league this season. So if there was any game that the Warriors would be able to get back on track from three, I think it would be this one. I would look towards the over or the Warriors team totals over specifically. That would be at 119, I believe.
Let's go. Detroit playing Minnesota. I like Detroit minus 110. Edmonton playing Philadelphia. I like Edmonton in regulation. Pittsburgh against Washington. In this game, I like the over in the Pittsburgh-Washington game. New York Rangers against Buffalo. I like the New York Rangers here. We go on to Dallas and New Jersey. This is a real tough one for me. I lean on the over, but I really don't like this game. Colorado, short price against Nashville. I still don't like it. Nathan McKinnon coming into this game, leading Colorado off of a big game last night. Bad spot for Colorado. I prefer Nashville as a slight underdog. Florida against Seattle. Matthew Tkachuk likely won't play. Barkov coming off of this tournament. If you're ever going to take a big dog, it's in this game. Seattle plus 210. Boston against Anaheim. I like Anaheim here as well. Boston's a fade team moving forward, plus 170. Winnipeg against St. Louis. I lean on St. Louis here. Connor coming off of a tough loss last night. It'll be emotional letdown spot for Winnipeg. Take St. Louis at plus 120. I like Ottawa in regulation against Montreal. I like Columbus in regulation against Chicago. I like the under in the Carolina-Toronto game. I like the Kings in regulation, and I like Vancouver as a live plus 135 dog against the Vegas Golden Knights.